All right, hello everyone. Welcome to some Game Cave development time. This is coloring with gradient maps. I think it's probably the second time I've kind of covered this. I'm going to get into some more. So if you want to look at my tips and tricks section, I got some gradient map stuff in there, how I colored a Batman piece. So I'm going to talk about this now because it's fresh in my mind. So as I move into doing interior artwork on the first volume of Game Cave, I want to sort of make things more efficient for coloring. This is how I used to color. This is a piece of concept art I did for Bombcat. And this is colored in a traditional digital manner, wherein, watch, I can go here. Turn on the line arts, right? I got some line arts. And then I got some basic flats, right? So basic flats. And then nice little shade. I actually paint in shades. Some adjustments and tint the hair a little bit more, add some highlights, make the skin a little bit pinker, more details, add in highlights, all that stuff, boom. So that is a traditional way. That can get pretty tedious, and I'll be honest with you, I have found something that's a way more simpler. It's called coloring with gradient maps. So I'm going to show you really quick what that looks like, the final result. Boom. From that to this. Not a huge difference, which is nice because I got the result I wanted, but I also was able to modify the colors so they're more vibrant. Better control, really. And over a big piece of work, say you're using the same colors over and again, skin tones, you know, colors of gold, colors of green, grass, trees. As you build these things over and over again, I don't have to sit there and mix the colors over and over again. All I'm doing here is, let me show you. I'll go over here. So my layers is I'm going to turn this black and white. I have found the easiest way to do this for Photoshop, for gradient maps to work, is to just fill in the area you want to color. Like I made a copy, fill it with black, and set it to saturation. So in this case, I just drew around here, filled it with black, and set that to saturation. I've tried adjustment layers at black and white. I've tried different settings, but this is the only way I can get the gradient maps to keep all my highlights and stuff. So the idea here is that I would paint this all in black and white to begin with, okay? Just black and white, which I've done plenty of time. This isn't really hard. So, you know, these are just the same values for skin, for shade, you know, 30% black, 50% black, 70% black, 90% black. I do work in percentages. That's it. Just paint it in shade. And then add gradient maps. So we're going to go all the way down. I'm going to throw a few of my unused ones here down at the bottom. So the first thing I did was start with her skin tones. And I'll just turn this gradient map on. So to create a gradient map, go right here to your adjustment layers, click it, and select gradient map. It's that simple. Now, it will default to the mask. So if you want to start to sample colors, you need to make sure you select the actual gradient map area. Then click this, and you can do whatever you want. So you can flip all these around to different types of settings. And what it's doing, what Photoshop is doing, is it's basically anything in the white, anything in the gray, and anything in the black is going to get those colors. So it works from right to left. You can hit reverse, but I like to just keep it this way, darker for black. See this little black right here? It goes black to white. That's basically what it's doing. So if I move this over, you know, I can get all sorts of effects, right? Well, I cancel. So with her skin, over here, I've just set this up based on previous things that I've colored. Pick skin tones. I want some pink right here in these little areas around her nose and cheeks and her shading. I want a fairer skin on her with a little bit of white. You know, the one in the white highlight, I want that to be like a nice tone. And a little bit of this dark area if I go black. It's not in there yet, but if I do want to go more shadow, I could. So let's just say I go down here to the black and white layer and start airbrushing in black so I can get, I can also just You know, if I wanted to just quickly paint that in. All I'm doing is painting black, right? And go back to white. And create highlights, so forth and so forth. So I set up the skin. Now this requires a little bit of button clicking and back and forth, but you can sample from games, you can sample from anything, really. In this case for the skin, it's set to normal here, but sometimes I set it to color. Usually I set it to color. And the reason why, as I'll show you, is you can paint on top. But I found with skin tones, in this case, work better as normal. See if I set it to color on this one, I get a little bit more contrast. You know, it's personal taste. Just gave her so color to normal. This just depends on what you like. You know, I mean, it's so minor. Doesn't really matter. A little less contrast. So it's up to you. And then her hair, right here. Okay. Now, in the book, I do have people of different color. So I did work out already a skin tone for Truffles. It was going to be her companion moving forward in the story. And I set up a skin tone for Truff. So you can see right in here. Sort of clamp this, you know, a little reddish in the little areas and a little bit of gold here in the highlight. So, and you can quickly see that the power of this is versatility. If I want to flip colors around, I mean, it's really not hard, right? I can go down there and I'm not mixing a bunch of color, you know. And these are savable. You just drop them into any new piece of art that you want and then mask it in. So what I did here is I just selected for my flats, which isn't exactly perfect. You get a little bit of like, I call them craggly, a little bit of areas that don't quite line up, and you got to go in and paint around and touch it up, but it's super fast. So I could probably black and white tonally set her up in about an hour, taking my time, you know, maybe 30 minutes, and then drag in my gradient maps, you know, put them all in the mask and then just paint on top, and within, you know, 2 hours, she's done. Versus what, maybe 3 or 4 hours of like noodling paint and color picking, you know. I don't like to sample from a bunch of images while I'm working. One of the ways that I do like to practice making gradient maps is you can just, like I said, pull them from games. Game Cave takes place in JRPG settings. So in this case, I grabbed a screenshot from a video game called Medora, which may or may not ever come out. I did bag it. And I went through and rebuilt all these little areas. I got 2 kinds of trees. And this is that black here with the saturation layer. Now watch what happens. Actually, no, that's the game. So you can see this right here is the tree I've made, the gradient map. And it's flawless, right? Works perfectly. Now, if I had set this to black and white, like as an adjustment layer, to, you could see the contrast is all weird. You lose a lot. I don't know why that is. I even tried just going hue saturation and I'll just desat. And it's still not right, you know? So what I did work out was I just said, well, what if I fill it with black and set it to saturation? It works perfectly. So don't ask me why. I don't know. It's just the way Photoshop is interpreting those values. But this is a nice area I can come through and test out colors and save them and plop them back in. I've used this to help me recolor a piece of concept art just the other day for Butter Bay, right here. And this is with the new and improved colors, and this is before. So I sketched this up right here, just actually sketching in color with green, this, and adding some shadows. And, you know, it's fine, little piece, it gets the idea, but, you know, contrast and, like, fuck, you know, like, moving forward, it's going to be hard to color that way. So I went back after I figured out that stuff. No. I'll just prove it here. Turn everything off. And it's black right here, set to saturation, right? And then I just took my dirt swatches that I made in the Medora sample, dragged them in, and just sketched in dirt. Now you can see the waterfall's colored dirt too, right? That's because it's set to, when it's set to color mode, you can paint right over most stuff without having to mask it out too much, which is nice. So you can see I just painted right over there, and that's set to color. Now if this were normal, you get a different effect, less contrast, right? Put it back on the color, boom, contrast. So then I have little patches of yellow dirt. There's the yellow brick, my gray concrete. Made some red roofs. That's my lime grass. And what's really cool about the lime grass is you can see it goes from lime green, teal, dark blue. And look how much contrast you get right there. I mean, look at all that variety. And that's not me having to sample 8 different kinds of trees and paint them all in. You know? It's brilliant. And then birch leaves. These are going to be birch trees. I want this whole birch tree coloration I can just plop in there. And what that means is that when you get done is you can build levels of detail on top. Add a little sky. And I can show you how I did that right here. Let's go turn this off. Turn this off. So the first thing I said was, look, this is pretty, but I need more contrasted shadows. If the sun's coming up here, this would have bigger areas. And so I could have gone down here, right? Set this to 50%, right? Would be pretty good. Just quickly. Yeah, that's one way you could do it. You could just come down here and add another layer. Right? But you see, it's not as contrasted down there because it's selecting from my colors in the gradient maps. And so I wanted something with a little bit more oomph. So the way I sort of think about it is that this is my basic lighting, sort of all over lighting in gaming. A lot of times they paint things in games all over. You don't really light it because the engine will have its own lighting thing. This is like the all over version, right? And then, oh shucks. So yeah, you can see right here. Here's a lack of contrast. I had the shade actually on. You could, I mean, that's different. But yeah, you can see right here. So the all over basic lighting like this, and then I made a shade situation here. What this is some adjustment layers, some dark purple. This is a little bit more complicated. What I've done is it's a purple base at the vivid light, and the short story is when I go over greens, it makes it more purpley, and because sometimes those colors don't match. So it's got my own custom settings. I'll make another video on that later. But basically, I can come in here and add a lot more shadows. See, like come right in here and paint in really good contrasting shadows, and then paint airbrushing on top. You know, and if this were a final piece of art, I could go in and just detail the crap out of this, you know, to no end. But I recolored this whole thing using the gradient maps plus all the details in about 2 hours. You know, and it took me like 4 or 5 the first time, so I cut my rendering time in half. So, getting back to Bombcat here, we go right here to her hair now. She has pink. I wanted her to have pink, pinkish hair, and if you go here, like tips. Oh, see right here, but I never liked the way that came out. It was more like on the inside over here. So I just made a pink alternate gradient map. It's actually 2 gradient maps, 3 actually, to get more contrast, and airbrush it in. And if I disable the mask, you can see. So what it is this is a basic gradient map with some purple to pink. Right here, purple to pink. And then we'll turn this on and duplicate it. Set to multiply at 50% to make it more pinkish here, right? And then I added an overlay. I duplicated it and overlaid it to get that nice kind of cartoonish glow. And then I just selected her hair and airbrushed in the tips. Super easy. Her lips are red, and again, which is just red to purple here. And this, by the way, I'm working on RGB, but I'm previewing it in CMYK. So this is how it's right here. This is how it's going to print. So it's good saturation. The purple, her purple clothes, and you can see if I can flip between my original and here and tell, you know, it's a little bit of adjustment in the purples and stuff, but the difference, you know, far outweighs noodling that it used to take before. This is just the coloration in her eyes. I call it purple eyes. So, and then her stocking colors here. The gold scarf is just the this orange birch right here. Gradient map dropped in for her orange scarf. The blue eyes, which again, just set to color. The green. Okay. Set to color. And then I use the red roof swatch from the Butter Bay piece to add a little, just to color over little mixing pieces here. And that's that. Now, if I wanted to add more dramatic lighting on top of that, I could grab my shade layer, my cool shade here. And so you go here and then add some additional lighting on top. And this would be based on the actual light source. Yeah. Like if there was an actual, if I wanted to do, okay. So get my little extra layer of shade if I wanted, if I really wanted that. Yeah. Not always necessary for sequential art and stuff. If you just really quickly, just go back here. I mean, another way to do it essentially is just add a black layer, but you can see the difference here when I'm adding black. I'm just trying to like mask opacity. The gradient maps are sort of designed for all over lighting, right? So when you start to get to these super high contrasty things, it's not going to give me like a light source, and it's not going to be tinted. Like if it's the middle of the day, you're going to have like a coolish color, maybe a warmish color, depending on the time of day, right? So with this, it's designed, I've set it up so it's got a tinted color and it's got some adjustment layers here. Like select the color that just turn it so I get the colors that I want. More or less, I'd have to tweak it for her hair. Her hair is not very much contrast right now. Yeah. I have to play with that a little bit for her. Regardless of the shading part, which is a little bit more of a work in progress, the gradient map thing works brilliantly. I'm going to be honest with you. If you're doing a project that you're going to be, covering a lot of areas, I would look into it. You're able to keep everything on task in terms of, similar colors. You're going to be using, same yellows, the same blues, things over and over and over again. This way, you're not spending forever like mixing this brown with that brown, this brown with that brown. You're just painting black and white, and then you throw the gradient map on top. And then in this case, I added some. You can see this is with no shade. This is just basic gradient maps, and then I added some additional shading on top. And you get those cool, dramatic shadows. You can add another little piece on top, and it's pretty awesome. Will this work for things like Gothic things, not cartoony stuff? Yeah, it doesn't matter what the subject material is. You can plop open some screencasts from your favorite movies, you know, or horror games or horror books or whatever, and sample the colors. It doesn't matter what colors you pick. Game Cave is a bit more of a lighthearted thing, so you know that's just the difference. But if we just from this to that, super easy, you know. So that's gradient maps. I will definitely record more as I'm producing the book. I'll be recording everything, and we can go over even more stuff. If you have any questions about it, it's a pretty simple process. I would just truck forward and get used to doing it. You know, like you can produce some pretty amazing, you know, some pretty amazing results. Like I wouldn't want to have to select these kinds of blues and have a swatch and mix all this shit together. It would take forever. I know because I've done that. Like, and I got a lot of Game Cave shit to draw. So, you know, when it comes to coloring, it's just about making it more efficient, letting Photoshop actually do the blends for me. And the only thing I'm going to do is work in tonal value, you know. So it's pretty simple. Thanks for hanging out. I will answer any questions you have in the comments below. Bye.